Welcome to First Light Warrior Podcast, empowering a savage, not average mindset. Today you are listening to excerpts from 2 audio discussions hosted on X Spaces by Dr. Heath, where I'm sharing my personal approach to meeting challenges head on and with gratitude. Remember that there is plenty of free content on my Substack, but also please consider becoming a paid contributor for deeper discussions.
Okay, TMR, when you're ready, just let me know, and I'll toss it over to you. Jane, thank you for co-hosting. But let me hear from Tyler, and then we'll go to Sonia. Tyler, what do you say?
This is, oh my goodness. So it is so incredibly relevant, not only to, everything in my world, but also just someone that I've been dealing with for a few days. So, holy wow. I've posted all of this about my own challenges and just learning to understand being in the desert and where we build strength and all of that. It's so basic to me now that it is an easy conversation. Okay. So it's everything that I'm about because I understand it from the inside out so deeply now. But there was a time on Instagram and DMs, you can keyword search old conversations. And I do that sometimes to refresh my memory about things I've talked with my mentor about. And I was doing that recently, looking for a date on something. I wanted to remember when something happened. And I stumbled across this conversation where I asked him, because I was ready to hear it at that point, what's the biggest area that I am struggling? Like, what is the biggest difficulty? Now, that's not a question most people are willing to ask someone. And I knew he would be accurate. I knew he would be honest. And he thought about it for maybe a few seconds and he said, the killer instinct. He said, when something comes at you, you don't dig in, you don't lock in and just handle it. Now, this was a long time ago. And what it did was it highlighted the shift. Because recently we had a conversation where he said, do you have any idea how much has changed just this year? The change has been, the improvement has been exponential over the last 6 months. And my mind went back to that conversation when I saw the old conversation and I went, that's what he was saying. The killer instinct is there now. He said, something happens and you go, okay, how are we handling this? How are we going to fix it? But you see, the only way that someone can do that is by taking personal accountability. And when I see people constantly saying, this person made me feel this way, that person makes me feel another way, I don't have any control over it, I can't this, I can't do that, and my life sucks, and oh my gosh, like I have the privilege only of waking up in the morning and having opportunity. That's the privilege. Everything else I've had to work for it. There's no privilege in that. The privilege is I opened my eyes. I got out of bed unassisted. There was a time when I couldn't. So it's a beautiful opportunity to start your day filling your lungs with breath and standing up unassisted if you're able. But those of us who knew Joshua Busby, look guys, he used to say a quote that I have on a meme, if you're afraid of failure, don't get out of bed. Now, I don't know how many of us have seen it, but him getting out of bed meant a Hoyer lift, being in a sling. He was helpless, but he got out of bed.
Tyler, can you now? You know probably more about this than I do, but I have had discussions.
Yeah.
Did have just discussions with Josh because I was going to interview him. I was setting up an interview with him, and he let me know how long it took him to get ready,
Yeah.
even to be able to do it. And you started there. Go ahead and finish. How long did it take him to get ready to be on a space or to do something like that?
So, I mean, getting out of bed, getting in that lift and everything. Of course, his wife was his caretaker. Amazing woman. Still an amazing woman. She's on my Facebook. You know, you're talking about probably an hour. You have to be very careful when you can't feel or control parts of your body, and when you can't control most of your body, which he couldn't. He could use one hand for his mouse, you guys. And so here was his scenario. He could run a space from the laptop using his mouse and not need assistance, or he could run it from his phone and need assistance from Christina. He couldn't do the phone by himself. So when you are being lifted into your chair for the day, in fact, you have to be very careful how the person is situated in the chair so that they're not injured, because they can't control stuff and maybe can't feel things. So, I mean, I'm kind of spitballing here on that because of other knowledge, from other people and everything. You're probably talking about, getting yourself up, getting dressed, getting cleaned up, getting situated in the chair. That's probably an hour by itself.
Yeah, I think you said something about a couple of hours.
Yep. To get ready for being online. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really a Herculean thing for him that most of us have
And we
no frame
didn't
of
know,
reference for.
you know what, like I only knew because I talked with him privately so much, and we had the in-depth conversations. Like, we both knew, like he knew more, certainly. I'm winding down. But we had that conversation about, like knowing when and what is it like to know that you probably won't outlive friends, family, things like that. We used to talk about those things kind of in a roundabout way. And so a lot of people were more taken off guard by his death than I was, because he had already clued me in that he was declining. And there were people who didn't know. You guys heard him sound exactly the same because he didn't come in here, woe is me, oh my God, I'm going to die, oh my God, my life is going to shorten, and, I feel like it's going to be soon. He didn't do that. He showed up.
And
Okay.
Tyler, now correct me here, because to my memory, what he did was he worked at his business. Josh started a business.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, he was working his business to the day that he died. He never quit. He never stopped. He never slowed down. He didn't sit
There's the
around
key.
whining and complaining. And what was that
Yes.
thing he had in his mouth? That was how he breathed, right?
Yeah, he had to have that. And at night, like he would have an assisted breathing device that was more passive. But yeah, he had that device so that he could continue speaking. A lot of people wouldn't understand what they were hearing. It was him closing his mouth around that so that the air would force into his lungs so that he could speak.
He was
And
literally
he
he was
even,
breathing through a straw.
yeah. And he even with that breathing assistance, I even heard him sing. You guys, he used to sing. So, he fought for every scrap right to the very end until his body just shut off. So when people come to me and I see them with a functional body, better function than I have, and they're crying about every little thing that goes wrong, you know what it does? It makes me mad. Because I'm fighting for every scrap, but I knew someone who was fighting harder than me. So, for the love of God, you got one shot. One shot at this. So what do you have to lose? Just put yourself into whatever you're doing. Pour yourself into it, because that adversity, that challenge, that's what's going to make you stronger for the next thing, because there is something else coming, I promise you.
And Tyler does that to me. Yes, there's something else coming, Tyler. Yeah, mic drop it is. Engage in the practice of what I call, just try this out. It would be great if you could try it out for a year, but just get started somewhere. Try it out for a day, and then you might decide to try it out for a week, and then you might go for a whole 30 days, or a whole 90 and make it a quarter, or a whole 6 months. But just get started slowly, but by all means get started. Instead of moaning and groaning about a pain in your knee and a pain in your shoulder and a pain in your head and a pain in your belly and a pain here, there, and everywhere, practice what I call gratitude. Gratitude. Have a pain and say, man, I feel that. That's great. Because like Tyler said, at least you have the ability to still have that physical experience.
Put your war face on.
That's right. Yeah, put your war paint on. Put your war paint on. I was doing my 2 miles yesterday, and I got a Charlie horse, as we call them, in my left calf, and I thought, "What the crap is that?" Now, I could care less, except for I don't want to tear something, of course. Uh, but I kept on going, got my 2 miles in. It was more difficult than usual, but my brain noticed me keeping my commitment. When you practice gratitude, instead of responding with whining and moaning and groaning and complaining and igniting, what I refer to, you guys know, as your BGC brain cell specialized type of neuron. BGC stands for bitch, gripe, complain. You notice a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people on X, have a high proliferation of BGC brain cells. Say that's great. It lets me know I'm living. It lets me know I'm doing something. Oh, there's that old familiar friend of, discomfort in my shoulder or whatever. Now, don't do stuff stupidly and get yourself hurt. If you're lifting weights, do it in good form in a controlled manner. Bicycling, yeah, don't weave in out of traffic unless you're one of those delivery guys in New York City. You got no choice. Be smart, be wise, be situationally aware, but practice gratitude. You'll find that the gateway mechanism of pain will work in your favor. Instead of when whining and moaning and complaining opens that gateway of pain wide open, you're just going to hurt more. You're going to have more discomfort instead of saying, there we go. See, that's what I'm looking for. That old familiar discomfort at really pushing myself to the limit. I have had one of the busiest days in recent history, and I just kept on telling myself, man, this is great. I can do it. And whatever you think of this guy, just using it as an example. This morning, my whole morning, who was I? Man, I was the CEO of SpaceX because that's how I looked at my morning. I'm not slowing, I'm not stopping, I'm not giving in, I'm not giving out, I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep on going. And I may not get every freaking thing done, but I'm going to be the most productive I've been. And I don't remember when. And you know what? I really was. And you can be too. Stop letting difficulty get in the way. Difficulty doesn't have to be an obstacle. Stop letting discomfort get in the way. Discomfort doesn't have to be an obstacle. Uh, Getting comfortable being uncomfortable is one of the best things you can do in your whole life. Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And most people don't do that. They just organize their life around comfort. And I'll have a few more things to say about that here in a moment. But TMR, and then we'll go to El Jefe and Sonia. TMR, what do you say?
Yeah, last things first. I completely agree. We've called it this in this space before. I practice what's called body hardening, but it pretty much has nothing to do with the body. It's completely between the ears. But the purpose isn't to suffer. The purpose isn't to make things that should be easy harder. The purpose is to expose myself to things, understand that I actually can endure and overcome them without it inhibiting what actually needs to be done. So the simplest example is when I walk out of the gym and it's, 20 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe even lower, I'm in shorts and a t-shirt walking to my car. Why? Because I know my car is not 45 miles away, and I know that exposure to these temperatures with my body doesn't mean anything. And what happens is, for pretty much the entire walk, I don't perceive pretty much anything cold, in part because I got out of the sauna, but I know that that isn't the only thing at play because I walk with other people at different times and they're thinking about how cold it is and they're shivering and doing the whole dance. But for me, that's just a hey, look at that. Look what I can do. That's cool. That's great. And it raises my bar for what I can endure. And it directly correlates to basically everything else that I try to be a high achiever at. So I think that's extremely important, but I think we need to do it functionally. And I've talked this with other people. Don't just smash your fingers because you're like, well, I guess it would be harder to play catch if I smashed my fingers. That doesn't make any sense. You need to do it where it's congruent with the actual outcome that you're looking for, which is maybe being more resilient at failure, getting back up, or being able to tackle things that get more difficult. The other thing that you talked about at the beginning of the space, and then I'll end it here, is sunk cost fallacy. And I think that it's one of the most important things that human beings should understand how to navigate because it goes down to what I believe is the art of being a human, which is decision making. And there are things in which we decide we need to pivot. And I think that deciding to go all in on something and never ever change your perspective or the way you do something is one of the most dangerous things, because if that was true, well, A, we'd all still pretty much have stopped at 1+1 and would have no idea how to do anything else more complex in math. And two, if we also did that, then we would never be able to safely drive a car, because we would basically just push the gas pedal too hard, and that would be our only, education on driving a car, and we'd all be dead. Or we just wouldn't hop in the car. So we do it already, but we convince ourselves, oh, I'm not a quitter, or I'm not a whatever. You're not quitting. If you look at it correctly, you're pivoting and you're changing your ways of operating. You're maybe pulling your foot off the gas on certain ways of doing things or different behaviors, shifting your career, but you're not quitting. You're only quitting if you decide to fully stop, which we've talked about is death. So if we can get away from, I got to keep doing this thing. Oh, I'm in this investment and I'll never sell, when there is all the evidence that you probably should, real evidence, not because the market's down, but because it's, wow, this company stinks and the CEO is doing nothing, it's pivoting. It's not quitting, but decision making is the art of being a human, in my opinion. And so I think that that's really important. So that's my perspective on it.
Tyler, take it away. Final speaker of the day. Thanks for coming.
Still morning here, so I'll say good morning. I had a very interesting weekend. For those who don't know, I was in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. Very last minute plans. Last year I missed an annual gathering that I would normally go to, and the opportunity came up this time and it fell all into place. So a lot of last minute reservations, but my mentor was there, and it's been 2 years since I've been face to face with him. So I ran. I went for that, and a lot of good face to face conversation. That's like, it's different. You can talk online, you can talk on the phone, whatever. It's just different. There's a different connection. And I think I had mentioned in one of the spaces before the weekend about looking up an old conversation where I asked him, what is it that I struggle with the most? Like, where am I missing it the most? What do I need to focus on? And he said, the killer instinct. Like, things come at you and I freak out. I know this one. And it's like I handle stuff, but I do have that meltdown initially. And it was interesting seeing that conversation. I stumbled across it accidentally. And I realized we just had a conversation 2 weeks ago where he told me that I'm not doing that anymore. And so why am I seeing this now? I was just intrigued. So I asked him in a late night conversation on Saturday, I said, so what's the next thing I need to work on? And he said, nothing. And I just stared at him and blinked. It's like the first time he's ever said that to me. And I said, okay. He goes, that's it. Once you get that, that's everything. The killer instinct. So, that's meaningful to me, but it's just the idea that the changes have been exponential recently. And the why. Here's the important part, because Peaceful Warrior said this. Those 3 things, hope, gratitude, and purpose, most specifically purpose outside of yourself. Those are the 3 things that I have come to know to be so important, because I see hopeless people in the lupus community every single day, and that used to be me. Nick Vujicic, by the way, is the way his name is pronounced. I've been following
How do you say that last name again?
Vujicic.
Vujicic.
Yes.
I've been pronouncing it wrong all the time.
I know you've got like a K in there, and I don't know what.
Well, there is a K in his name, is there not?
No,
Vujicic. There's no K in it.
Vujicic.
Vujicic.
Yeah, Vujicic.
Easy for you to say.
Yes, it is. But you know what? Like, and he swims and he does all kinds of stuff. Like, nobody's coming to save you, but nobody's coming to stop you either. Okay? I posted that just this morning. And the other one that I used to follow was Sean Stevenson, who sadly passed away a few years ago. The 3-foot giant. He had osteogenesis imperfecta. He was a little person, very little person. And, his bones would break easily when he was a child. And here's what I learned from him. And this is just the most beautiful thing to ingrain in your soul and mull it over and over and over. Okay?
because most people do not understand the context of the word suffering. So he had a break. It was Halloween. He was excited. He was rolling around the floor in his costume, and he had a break. And they couldn't move him when that happened. He had to lay where he was on the floor or whatever until he healed. That's how it worked. And he was so upset because he was missing Halloween, and it just ruined his day. He was a child. And his mother, in comforting him, said, "Pain is inevitable. Sooner or later, it touches all of us. Suffering is optional." Now, the first time I started teaching that, one of my friends in the lupus community, about a few months after she first heard me say it, she went, "Wait a second. What do you mean it's optional? I didn't choose to be sick." I said, "No, but you choose your approach to it. You can be angry. You can let it take over. You can become hopeless and say, I just don't want to do this anymore." And I've watched people do it. I've watched people give up and just let the disease take them. That's one form of suicide in the lupus community, is to just stop. Just stop fighting. That's all I'd have to do. That's all I'd have to do, you guys, is stop. I promise you the disease would take over again. So that you understand, this is not maintained easily. That's all I'd have to do is stop. I'm not going to do that. But at one point, not too many years ago, I was on the verge of that point. Okay? But suffering is not inflicted upon us. Suffering is a state of mind that is chosen. And so if you're walking through the desert or whatever fire you're going through, you can either approach it like Vujicic does, like Sean Stevenson did, and live your life. You can either deal with it and, live the life the best that you can, or you can let that take over. I'm not letting that take over because I had two fabulous people who stepped into my life and went, not that way, this way, And I'm so grateful for that. But the next level is this, and here's the most important point. Like, you can be grateful for, I survived that challenge. You can be grateful for, oh good, things are better now. But when you are in the middle of that desert, in the middle of that fire, and you can find it in yourself to get excited about that and say, oh man, that looks ugly. I wonder what amazing reward is on the other side of that. When you can be grateful for the pain, the challenge, the disaster, the chaos, knowing that it's going to bring you something amazing, when you can do that, you've now leveled up.
And there's the mic drop. Tyler, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We and all well said as always. Now you've leveled up.
As is the course of things in life, when you learn something new, you will be tested again. In the aftermath of my trip to New Hampshire and Massachusetts a couple of weeks ago, I believed that I had jet lag and then I was recovering, and that was not the case. Apparently, I picked up a flu strain that's going around, and in spite of feeling pretty miserable, I will say that the changes in my lifestyle, I'm pretty much carnivore at this point, that made a tremendous difference for me. A lot of my friends expressed pretty severe symptoms, and I think I recovered quicker. But in the midst of that, along with the very hot weather in San Bernardino where I live, I was off my feet quite a bit and triggered, for the first time in 3 to 4 years, piriformis syndrome. If you're not familiar, look that up. It's an extremely painful condition. It involves the sciatic nerve. And I had the grand opportunity to answer a question that I could never answer unless I experienced that level of pain again. I've been off the opioids, off aspirin, off acetaminophen, all of it, for 4 years as of July, this month. And so in the course of looking for my muscle relaxer, there was the bottle of hydrocodone. It's not a problem if it's needed. But for me, I had made the decision I'm not using it unless there is a serious injury or a surgery. First time I looked at it, no way. Didn't even enter my mind that I should take that. By the second time I needed to go into that bag where I keep the meds, heavy. I could feel the thought process creeping in because I was in a tremendous amount of pain and not getting relief. The last time, the third time, I was considering it. But I stopped myself because the decision has been made. If it is not harm, if it is not damage, if it is not an injury, if I have not been cut open for surgery, it is not necessary. Because that discomfort, as extreme as it is, it's not harming me. And I asked myself, who am I if I don't stand on my convictions in this? See, I have committed to being savage in my approach to any challenge that I meet and being grateful for the opportunity walking through that fire, being in the desert. And here was the moment to be grateful for the pain, the difficulty, the challenge, and find my way through it. And I did. I said no. I'm not shaming anyone who uses pain medication. This was a personal decision for specific reasons. But I'm very proud of myself for being able to answer that question now. If the pain came back to that degree, would I stand on my principles? I did. And I will continue to do that. There's no way to predict whether this could happen again in the future. I'm going to do all the physical therapy to prevent it that I can. But I now know myself better. That's the goal. Knowing who you are in the midst of that and being able to say thank you for this opportunity to prove to myself who I am now. Stay savage.